I've always believed that the best way to get accustomed to a new bike is to just go out and ride it. This new bike of mine isn't even a current model, so instead of giving it a traditional review, I think we should just go on a bit of an adventure. Welcome back to the Cycle Report. You see, far too many people that I know that own motorcycles rarely actually go anywhere on them. There's nothing wrong with owning a bike that mostly gets used for commuting or local riding, but I found the greatest enjoyment of all comes from touring on two wheels. Now, I don't expect people to just go around the world next week. Motorcycle touring is difficult, and it's something you have to build up gradually. I'm going to give you some basic guidelines and tips to help you get out of your comfort zone a little, to go take an adventure. So this will be the first installment in what I call Touring 101. And this one will be all about taking a day trip. The day trip will get you out, you'll ride pretty much all day, and return where you started at the end. The first step is planning. The upside is that a day trip doesn't require much planning. A good day trip revolves around a destination that you'll meet, say, midday and then head home after. This usually revolves around food, and today will be no different. My turnaround spot today will be at Ross's Diner in Bettendorf, Iowa. From my house in Warrenville, Illinois, it's about 140 miles door to door according to Google Maps. But I have zero interest in beelining it there on the interstate. To really enjoy the ride, I'm skipping major highways altogether, and I'm finding back roads there, so it'll end up being a bit further of a ride in the end, but it'll be much more enjoyable. Where there's hills or water, there's bound to be a decent road nearby. There will be great opportunities to explore small towns, weird roadside attractions like this monument to crop dusting. You never know what kind of really funny photo op will come along the way. I like to program my route into a standalone GPS unit that's hardwired to my motorcycle. It takes the burden off my phone's battery and also doesn't rely on cell phone signal strength. Also, before you head out, it's a good idea to give your bike a once-over. Check your tire tread and pressure. Double check your brakes, your clutch action, and your throttle play and slack. Check your chain for proper lubrication and proper amount of slack. Make sure your headlights and turn signals are functional. In terms of luggage, there isn't much need for it on a day trip. However, I always recommend a tank bag. They usually mount using either magnets or straps. Inside I keep a few basic tools. A 10 and 12 millimeter wrench, a couple of screwdrivers, Allen wrenches, and a few rags. Tank bags are also great for an extra pair of gloves, a sweatshirt, snack, or bottle of water as well. That'll account for most random little hiccups you might encounter without bringing a whole toolbox with you on the road.
So then it's time to hit the road, stretch our legs a little bit, and find some adventure. A day trip really gets you out there. You get to explore a bit. You get a lot more variety, a lot more scenery than you normally would just going to and from your normal local area. And I don't just mean commuting. I mean, commuting or evening rides around town with your friends, sort of local riding that a lot of people just kind of get stuck in a rut of only really doing this short little jaunts of maybe a 20 or 40 mile radius. You get used to your surroundings, you get used to the same roads, the same kind of couple turns you take to and from work each day, and you get used to it so much that sometimes you just start taking it for granted. That's why we pick our turnaround part so far away. It's because we kind of have to get outside of our normal area that we tend to spend most of the time. It's also a good excuse to just kind of purposely get lost. Maybe you don't use a GPS and you just sort of point yourself west and you figure it out. There's really nothing like a twisty country road to just sort of relax and hit the flow of the road and the terrain, be surrounded by walls of trees and not just buildings, cars, and Starbucks. It's beautiful. It's great. It's relaxing. It's fun. It's a great way to spend the day. So now that we're on the move, we're riding around, we've seen some stuff, what do we think about this bike? It's a 2006 Yamaha FZ1. So this motorcycle is based on the comparable year's YZF R1, their 1000cc superbike. It's sort of in the group of sporty, naked street fighters. What I always find odd, say the Honda is inspired by the CBR 1000RR race replica superbike. And so you'll get to see the engine specs and you'll notice that somewhere 50 horsepower just got left on the table. I know that what they made is a good motorcycle, but no one really ever says, I would like a naked version of that superbike, but knock 30% of the power off of it, please. No. What we want is pretty much or full-blown version of that superbike. We just want it to be less miserable to ride around town. Yamaha's done a really consistent job of delivering what we all think we want. The engine is retuned for the street. There's a few internal parts difference, but the best part about it is I think it only loses about 10 horsepower in translation, which this one is actually made up for with the optional exhaust. It's got a fuel controller and an upgraded intake. So, this is a upright seat position, naked bike that delivers relative comfort, and it still has over 150 horsepower at the rear wheels. This thing rips. It has plenty of tractable torque all through the rev range. Don't let any other reviews fool you. This thing pulls like a train at basically any RPM. And while it is a little bit more biased towards the top end scream, it does have a kick once you clear around 8,000 RPM. Once you clear that and you hit this sort of second cam change, almost like a Honda VTEC, right around 8,000 RPM, the next 4,000 RPM pulls so hard and you accelerate so quickly that the first few times you do it, your vision kind of blurs. It's mind-bogglingly fast, it's exciting, it's visceral, and it's one of the most characterful inline four-cylinder engines that I've ever experienced myself. I've ridden a lot of motorcycles that are built for higher speeds, big horsepower bikes, and some of them tend to handle speeds so well because of high top speeds that they lose any element of enjoyment or fun at lower speeds. I am pleasantly surprised this is not the case with the FC1. It's very light and it's nimble and it's flickable. It's very stable and it's very smooth, but you still feel things. It's visceral. It's a nice blend of everything. The steering's fast and it's flickable enough that it's good to sort of, dart through traffic, and it's actually pretty fun. So I'm headed through Starved Rock State Park. It's about halfway across the state of Illinois between Chicago and Iowa, and it is one of the few beautiful places in that entire stretch of state. The road into the park from the east is probably the twistiest road in northern Illinois, which isn't saying much, but it's good. So we're going to hit that on our way through and really kind of test the agility of this bike. This road is great. Oh wow, look at this. Fantastic. Brake, lean it in, power out. What a great machine. What a great road. So far, so good. The handling is razor sharp. It doesn't quite have the high-speed agility of a superbike, but it kind of destroys any other road-oriented machine I've ever experienced in that regard. So, just like the engine that maybe you lose 10% of that oomph, you might lose 10% of the handling that the superbike has, but it is still plenty capable for street riding. You won't miss it. Now, suspension is known to be the weaker point of this bike in comparison to its big brother, the R1. I think it's one of those things that unless you're on a racetrack, you won't really notice any difference, and it's perfectly adequate, if not more than adequate, for any sort of street situation you'll encounter. The brakes are great. Again, apparently the R1's brakes are a little bit better, but these are really good. I mean, a two-finger pull is plenty just to bring you down and really get yourself up on the tank. comfort-wise, you have a lot of options ergonomically. You can sort of sit up straight. You can tuck behind the windshield a little bit if you're going faster. You can lean forward. You have a lot of options. Now, with an hour and a half of straight riding in, I'm about ready to stretch a little bit. My hindquarters are getting a little bit numb. Something with this level of performance, with any comfort whatsoever, is a treat, let alone a nearly all-day level of comfort. While I'm getting hungry, it's perfect timing to pull up to our turnaround at Ross's Diner. Ross's is famous for a simply ridiculous dish that's called the Magic Mountain. They start with a really big platter. They put a few pieces of Texas toast on there, a mountain of seasoned ground beef, then they cover that with French fries, then they cover that with liquid cheese. And as ridiculous as that Magic Mountain sounds, I up the ante by going with the Volcano variant, which adds another smothering of spicy chili on top of the Magic Mountain. See? Magic Mountain, Volcano, get it? Good. I've been coming here for 20 years, and it's so cool. The owners are awesome. They have a guest book that travelers tend to sign. I've actually signed the book a few times over the last 20 years, and I just love it here. The service and just the general friendliness has completely stayed true the entire time I've been coming here. Now that my belly's full, it's time to head home. I'm actually going to go a different way home than the way I got here, because why not see more? This road goes along the Rock River, which is a really nice stretch of road that I discovered years ago. Like I said before, you find water, you will find good roads. It's a beautiful day, some beautiful scenery, and I'm just enjoying it. It's something I don't get to see if I just stick within my normal boundary from home. And after that, I'm doing the same thing. I'm continuing to work my way home, head generally east, but not really worry about the route. If I get lost or turned around, I'll just figure it out. Since I'm going all day long today, I wanted to make sure I maximize my comfort, because sometimes it's cool in the morning, it's hot in the middle of the day, and then it chills out again later in the day. So a versatile piece of protection is very, very good to have when you start thinking about touring. The more you can do with the less amount of items, the better when you're packing light on a motorcycle. In this case, I'm wearing a jacket that's really good for many, many different types of weather. It has these zip-off panels in the chest that have a mesh panel behind it. So as it gets warmer, I can take these off, and the jacket lets a lot of air through, and it can keep me cool. But if things change, I can zip them back in, and this jacket's good for me with a t-shirt and the panels all in, down to about 50 degrees, and I'm super comfortable. So we ride a little bit longer, and as we get closer to home, things start looking a little bit more familiar. And it makes me even happier that I left my comfort zone and went a little farther away from home today. I'm going to call today a huge success. I got to spend the entire day on my motorcycle, and not just doing circles around town. I really did some exploring. I found some new great places to ride. I got to know this new bike of mine in a way that would take me forever to do if I just went around town and back and forth to work for months. In one day, I know it better than I would have the whole summer of doing that. Like the KTM before it, this motorcycle needs to be a lot of different things. And so far, it passed with flying colors. I think this is going to be a really great motorcycle, and it's even better than I expected it to be when I bought it. Also, so far, I've dodged having a heart attack from eating a Volcano in the middle of the day. I genuinely hope that more people will see this and sort of use it as an inspiration to go find your own adventure on two wheels. There will be plenty of time for us to move the radius further and go properly far away. In later installments, I'm going to cover a weekend trip and even a whole full week adventure. But for now, you got to crawl before you walk. Get out, find yourself a good stop around point, plan a day trip, and just have fun. Thank you for watching the Cycle Report. See you next time.
You're watching Everyday Driver, We make a TV show, podcast,
and YouTube channels dedicated to great cars, driving adventures, and helping you find a car you'll love.
Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss a thing.